The surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. I'm going to step off the limb. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful.
What's going on, everybody? It's Carlos here, and I'm kind of excited because even though I know this is a topic that's very tabooed, I just want to share with you guys what I've come across. Now, I am a Bible-believing Christian, but that doesn't mean anything to most people these days. Heck, you go ask a congregation of believers if they believe in a flat earth, even though their Bible tells them that's what it is. They want to laugh at you, they scoff at you, and they kind of want to throw the book at you. So just imagine if I'm talking to you, telling you, hey, it's 2016 and I believe in a flat earth. You're going to look at me like, I lost my damn mind. Well, hopefully in this video, we can convince you otherwise. So sit back, relax, and I hope with the research that I've come across and shown you in this video, that maybe you look into this a little bit more. I'm not asking you to believe after you watch this, but I'm asking you to question things, because things are definitely not right. Alright, so what I've come across in my research, and when I talk to people about this, I realize the biggest stumbling block for most people are the pictures that we have, the evidence that they so-called say is so obvious. How can you question these things? I mean, you grew up seeing the pictures. Heck, they even did a whole live episode of how they landed on the moon. See, NASA is your biggest hurdle. This hurdle is so big that until you research NASA themselves, you're gonna realize nothing that they've been telling you has been true. And until you can get past that, this means nothing.
Last year, it's to say, NASA turned on the. All of us, we don't hear from them for years, and then all of a sudden, it's time to. We're doing this and we're doing that, and we're doing this. Here, we've got a probe flying by Pluto, so they took a picture of Pluto. Maybe that's open to it. Everyone was always ready for it. It absolutely looks like Pluto. They're taking the mic.
Forget they actually had to put Pluto from Disney on that planet.
They're just laughing at us now, man.
Somebody said, is this some kind of observational test? People that went to the gym say, is this an observational test? Because these are Atlas stones. These are these medicine balls that we have in the gym, and we've just filtered one up and told you it's a planet. And when you take it into Photoshop and change the levels and what have you, you can do this do it with your own pictures and see if the background's smooth.
Well, I mean, if you launch a satellite off this Earth, and this Earth is being carried along with the sun, how is that satellite keeping up? And how are we remote controlling this thing from 7 billion miles away? And then worse still, what the heck kind of Wi-Fi do they got going on that they can email us pictures of Pluto from 5 billion miles away? And now they're saying they want to take it out even further. They figured they've done the job around Pluto, so they're sending this thing out another billion light years, and they're supposed to cover that billion light years in, or not light years, billion miles. I'm sorry, billion miles in 3 years to go check out some other asteroid or something out there. Really? And you know, I couldn't even keep my cell phone reception across Lake Michigan. But yeah, we're emailing pictures of freaking Pluto from 5 billion miles away.
Yeah, I've done it, and the background is as you'd expect. It doesn't look like you pasted something in, and it's grey. I mean, you can't really see it on the screen, but you'll see it. You see the HD version, but the background is graded. There's several shades of black in there. It's not just a probe taking a picture, as they tell us it is. This is I mean, it looks like some kind of new domestic appliance of some kind, but it is actually the Kepler telescope, and it's how we believe there's lots of Earth-like planets out there. It's about the size of a house, and lots of gold foil again, obviously. And here's a picture of the Kepler telescope in space.
It's unbelievable. But yeah, check it out. So this one represents 5 hours of rotation. No clouds are moving. No clouds. Clouds don't move. Okay? No clouds. No clouds are moving in here. So that's 5 hours. We go to the one that was just posted yesterday, and we got 4 hours. 4 hours of rotation, and yet the clouds aren't moving. Okay, guys, you know, on Earth, clouds move. You know, go outside, set your camera up, look up in the sky, you know, point your camera to the sky, record maybe 4 hours worth, bring it into a computer, speed it up so you get a nice time lapse like this. You're going to see the clouds doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But that never happens with NASA. I mean, it didn't even happen with Jupiter, for crying out loud, in the last couple of years. Russian Vids did a video on that. I'll just put a real quick clip here of something he just did.
Just another example of NASA faking space. Let's take a look here at this supposed image of Jupiter. Nothing more than CGI fakery. The supposed auroras towards the north. Let's take a look here. Again, at NASA's official website, where it states Hubble captures vivid auroras in Jupiter's atmosphere. Here's the problem. The date of June 30th, 2016. Now take a look at this. Another so-called official image of Jupiter. This one's from back in 2014. You see the problem here? Now let's take a closer look at the supposed 2 images provided from NASA of Jupiter. Here's the problem. Again, 2016, 2014. What's the difference here? Well, the difference is they added the supposed auroras on the north, and this is nothing but a Christmas tree. Give me a break. Take a look here. I mean, all the clouds are in the same exact position. Just the 2016 image is a bit, I would say, darker. This is a bit lighter in 2014. Here's a side-by-side. People can't see what's taking place here with NASA. Nothing more than fakery. I mean, give me a break. This is a complete insult. If you have a brain in your head, supposed clouds moving at the speeds they supposedly do, and they get the same exact image from 2 years apart. Not possible.
Okay, you can watch the rest of his video. I put the link in the description below. He goes and continues to rip a hole into NASA because they deserve it, folks. And if you still believe NASA after they continue to put out crap like this, then truly the aspartame and chemtrails and fluoride has done a job on you. All right, you know, people wonder why I'm building sites like testingtheglobe.com. This is why, okay? These people are full of crap. All right, now, I mean, early on in my investigation right here, I put this right here, okay? This is on testingtheglobe.com. This was in the beginning of my investigation, looking into the photographic evidence, right? Looking at these 2 pictures, right? Look how big the United States is on the left compared to the one on the right. And this was also done by a satellite. It says the blue marble image of the Earth taken from the VIIRS instrument aboard NASA's Earth observing satellite. They admit that it's a composite image.
Last week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is compiled from data from NASA's VIIRS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery like this, and then into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most mind-expanding collections of images in human history. Then in 2002, Blue Marble 2.0, NASA's Rob Simon made this. And it had wide appeal too. For example, it ended up as the default background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know until I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of did a little happy dance.
Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is, a composite of data sets from several different instruments translated into a picture.
To us, the really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the land layer here comes from
the Moderate Resolution Imaging Spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Wait, what? So you saying pictures of Earth are photoshopped?
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be. It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then?
There was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
And then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command-Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
What I imagine it to be. Unfortunately, I'm not an astronaut. I've never been to space. But I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it.
Right? Look at that. Look how big the United States is right there. Huge. It's taken up half the globe. Okay, and then you look at the picture on the right, you know, the NASA.gov website, I got the link there, describes it the same way. But then it describes this other picture here. Today, April 22nd, 2014 is Earth Day, and what better way to celebrate than taking a look at our home planet from space? NOAA's Goes East satellite captured this stunning view of the Americas on Earth Day, April 22nd, 2014. Wow! All of a sudden the United States shrunk and the color of the ocean changed. These are two satellites. Two satellites supposedly took these pictures from satellites from about 1 million miles away. And, you know, of course, there's this Galileo space probe from 1.3 million miles away, allegedly shot this time lapse. This is 25 hours that was supposedly recorded on December 11th, 1990. Okay, you click on that, and you watch 25 hours of the Earth rotating and no clouds are moving. 25 hours. Really? You don't see clouds arriving, dissipating, changing, morphing. No, I mean, there's a little bit of perceived motion maybe right there, but other than that, no. In NASA's world, your Earth doesn't have moving clouds. Everything stays the same. Stays the same on Earth, stays the same on Jupiter, and you guys believe it. And you guys make fun of everybody out there questioning all this stuff and saying, you know, the only proof we have that we live on a ball is coming from these people, and they put out crap like this, and you believe it, and you call everybody else stupid. You know, I think we need to demand our money back. Seriously, I mean, we are getting ripped off. You know, we're giving these people billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars a year, and they can't even produce better images than this. I could make better images than this in my 14 by 12 office space with a few $100s worth of off-the-shelf software. The only conclusion that I can come to when I look at stuff like this is that their graphics department, the people that are running this, or the people that are actually doing the artwork, have got to be putting this stuff out as cheesy as they possibly can, and putting memes in the imagery like spelling sex in the clouds, so that you guys will get a clue. These guys are probably under some sort of non-disclosure, and, you know, maybe under the threat of life and limb, for crying out loud. Who knows? Wouldn't put anything past this government. Okay? These things are being put out there for people with brains that can look at this stuff and say, this is crap, this is not real, and why should I ever trust anything from NASA ever again? That's what you should be thinking right now. Unbelievable. Wow. Anyway, just another day of people believing more of NASA's crap.
I can't believe that every single day I'm thinking about flat Earth. In 2016, I'm like, why? Oh man, it drives me nuts, but it's always on my mind. And there's something to it. I feel like it's true. Like, I think it's true. I'm not going to tell you it's 100% real, but I think I'm more convinced than ever the Earth is flat, and we need to get the word out that we're being lied to, because I'm certain that it's not a globe. that's the whole thing. I try to tell people, you know, they're like, you're a flat earther, you think you know everything, what's under the flat earth and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't know what's under, I don't even know where we're at. So what's going on, man? NASA, sometimes they tell us the truth, and us conspiracists and people with eyes to see and ears to hear, we're like, did you hear what he said? They just admitted that they can't, you know, go past low Earth orbit or something like that. And there's plenty of these videos all over the place. Like my buddy from Germany, Cesar, he posts some videos with the NASA astronauts admitting that they can't go past low Earth orbit. But anyway, it's like, you know, they tell us the truth, and us, we're like, oh yeah, why isn't something being done about this? And then the NASA fans, science buffs, space freaks, you know, they're like, no man, you're taking that out of context. He didn't mean it like that. Go kill yourself. You're retarded. Don't have children. You know, the basic three, the 3-point combo. Go kill yourself, retarded person that shouldn't have kids. Beep beep beep. You know. So they hit us with the three piece, and we're like, nah man, these guys are telling us they can't go past low Earth orbit. Listen to this first guy that I got lined up. He's Mark Gyro, the program, the manager for the Orion program. Just like a 10-second clip of him basically saying that we're gonna finally get to go out and venture into outer space soon with the program that he's working on. And it's pretty crazy, man. You just gotta listen. All right, so check out this first one.
NASA's next spacecraft, already being built and tested across America, will do those things and more.
This is the spacecraft that's going to take humans to explore the solar system. It's the next big step for NASA in exploration.
Called the Orion Multipurpose Crew Vehicle, or MPCV, this next generation spacecraft will enable America to explore beyond low Earth orbit.
Now, let's look at, there's a clip from 2014. It's NASA engineer Kelly Smith. It's a dude. If you have kids, don't name them Kelly if they're dudes, all right? So anywho, there's a dude named Kelly Smith, NASA engineer, 2014, with this epic video, with this epic music, talking about the Orion project and how we're finally gonna go up and test out the Van Allen radiation belts to see if we could learn more about them, so we could finally pass humans through them. But the thing is the moon is on the other side of the Van Allen radiation belts, which I want to talk about the Van Allen radiation belts in more detail a little towards the end of the video, but check out this clip.
As we get further away from Earth, we'll pass through the Van Allen belts, an area of dangerous radiation. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space.
Alright, this next clip is from Terry Virts. He's an astronaut in the ISS in 2015, just a year ago, said that right now we can only fly in low Earth orbit. Hopefully soon, with the building blocks that we're building, we'll be able to explore, and we got a lot of destinations that we want to go to, like the moon and Mars. It's just weird what these guys are saying. So listen to what he says.
Plan that NASA has is to build a rocket called SLS, which is a heavy lift rocket. It's something that is much bigger than what we have today, and it will be able to launch the Orion capsule with humans on board, as well as landers or other components to destinations beyond Earth orbit. Right now, we only can fly in Earth orbit. That's the farthest that we can go, and this new system that we're building is going to allow us to go beyond and hopefully take humans into the solar system to explore. So the moon, Mars, asteroids, there's a lot of destinations that we could go to, and we're building these building block components in order to allow us to do that eventually.
See, like, allow us to do that eventually. We're working on it, and so it can allow us to do it eventually. But 45 years ago, we were going to the moon. how the hell did we go to the moon if we have all these issues now and we lived in a more advanced technological society? NASA's been taking billions of dollars each year, and we've only went to the moon 45 years ago, and now we can't even get past low Earth orbit. And it's just, these guys are full of shit. You got to understand this, and everybody needs to understand this. It's just out of hand. They tell us the truth, but they also lie. When they lie, most people believe them, and when they tell the truth, it's in one ear, out the other. They filter it. They don't even want to hear that. Like when they tell the truth, they don't believe them. When they lie, they do believe them. We have been conditioned in a way that is really hard to comprehend. It's on a level that's just amazing. I mean, a lot of people are waking up, especially when you're on YouTube and stuff, and on your social networks. You get the feeling that a lot of people are waking up. But you go outside and you don't see much, there's a lot of zombies. And I'm not trying to be mean, these are my people. But go outside and talk to people, they don't even know about the videos on YouTube. They're like, what the hell are you talking about? I watch the news in the morning with my coffee and stuff, and they don't know about all this stuff. A lot of people are finding out, and more people are sharing this stuff. Still a lot of cognitive dissonance out there though. But either way, I'm feeling good about where we're headed. We got a lot of good stuff going. But yeah, man, so NASA's telling us the truth, and they aren't speaking in parables. It's not like some mysterious, words to decode. They're flat out telling us that they can't go past low Earth orbit, and we're in 2016. And people like the private space programs like SpaceX have been trying to get a rocket up for years, successful test flights. They don't ever have any, and it's like, there's something going on, man. How long can they continue to do this?
That's the point we've got to now, where they are literally laughing at our gullibility and stupidity that we continue to believe they're nonsense.
Yep, absolutely. That's what people look at is, believe. I don't know if they have to, if it's part of like the deal God's got with the devil, that they have to outline or show their ends, but in a hidden way. And I believe that's why, people always show stuff that in Hollywood movies, like, well, where do you think they're getting their information from? They're not making this stuff up because there's no new thing on it. What has been shall be again. So the stuff we're seeing in movies is to push an agenda. It's to plant seeds in your head, which we see with the alien agenda. You get these aliens showing up and claiming to be our creators, and here's a genetic upgrade. You guys are ready to evolve now. And I see the whole plan playing out, and I see how Flat Earth just completely destroys that. If you look at it through the Flat Earth perspective, you're like, no, those ain't aliens. Those are demonic entities. Those are fallen angels. It's a trap.
Well, yeah, that was one of the early realizations that I had when I started looking into this. Because one of the things that people always say is, well, what's the motive then? Why, if this is all a big lie, why would NASA lie to us? I said, well, you got to take this a lot further back than NASA. You got to go back to Genesis in the garden, when the serpent said, hath God really said? Really? Did God really say that? Did God really consistently describe this place as a circular, still, flat Earth set on pillars under a dome within which the sun, moon, and stars were placed on day 4? Did he really say that? That's how far back it goes. And when you realize how many people have become atheists, specifically because of the spinning heliocentric ball in an ever-expanding universe model, where Carl Sagan and everybody else made it quite clear that we are irrelevant, that we are a speck of dust, the pale blue dot in a backwater area of the universe. You are nothing. It's all random chance and evolution. All of that comes from the spinning heliocentric ball model. It's what made evolution even remotely plausible. More people have become atheists because of the spinning heliocentric ball than anything else, because of that whole paradigm. But if you take that whole paradigm away and you realize you're in a divinely created terrarium, well, evolution goes out the window and ancient aliens is obliterated. The whole thing is...
That's exactly why this topic is important to the church, important to saints. It definitely should not be something that causes discord or strife. If it does, then we flat earthers just need to drop the topic and talk about something else. But if somebody's looking into this, if God has put on their heart that they need to look into the flat earth to see if it's so, then the reason why it's so important is because there's so many lost people who are now getting their evolution, heliocentric view shattered, and they're looking for truth. And there's not enough saints in these arenas when it gets down to where, when we're talking one-on-one, that they need to believe on what Jesus did on the cross and faith alone for their salvation, because there's too many New Agers that are prophesying and proselytizing all of them in there. So it's literally a huge battle in those arenas, and we are losing the numbers because a lot of saints have grabbed on to the ball theory because they're trying to put the Bible to the ball their whole life, and they won't swallow their pride in order to go save some souls in the white harvest. So it is very dire topic for saints, but only for the reason to save other souls. We should not be arguing with other saints on if the earth is flat. If God starts showing you, then look into it, because we need as many people in there, as many saints in these arenas as possible, because there's so many people searching for truth. So that's why I think it's one of the most important topics of today for the church, and it's one we're losing.
Well, it's a very... People, why are you so obsessed with this, Rob? I'm like, well, because I was raised my entire life and have spent my entire life saying the Bible is my source for truth and I can take it literally. Well, if this is what the Bible says and it's not true, I mean, if we are on a spinning heliocentric ball, Genesis crumbles, the whole Bible falls apart. Really, because from Genesis to Revelation, it is, people they don't like it when I say this, but it's true. From Genesis to Revelation, it is a flat earth book. But if it's not a heliocentric ball, then what do we do with that? At this point, if that's true, then basically all we've got is a bunch of ignorant sheep herders and fishermen writing fairy tales. They were clearly clueless. And if they were clueless about our origin, how can we trust anything that the Bible says about our destination, or about the end, and everything in between? And you might as well just throw the thing out. I mean, that is what it came down to for me. As I'm going, wow, I mean, and I have literally cried myself to sleep on numerous occasions over this past year, going, God, what is the deal? I mean, is your word true or not? Because to be fair, there is still a lot of very compelling evidences out there for the ball. Granted, I don't have the answers to. But at the same time, we've already talked about a number of things that are not possible on a ball. So, this became critically important to me because I'm like, well, I'm not going to try to twist and mangle the scriptures to my preconceived ideas and biases. I'm going to mold my thought processes to what it says. And as I just decided to take it literally and believe what it says is true, I started going out and looking for the evidence of it and started seeing stuff. And started documenting. I mean, I produced about 100 videos, for crying out loud, and several hundred pages of printed content on it. If people are actually willing to go look at this stuff, in my mind, it fully and totally, completely, absolutely validates the scriptures as true from Genesis to Revelation. And if it's true about the beginning, then it's going to be true about the end. And if it's true about the end, then as Dave Murphy says, you know what? He was quoting Kent Hovind. He said, there are two possibilities, and both of them are terrifying. One, there is no God, and this is just, all useless, and what's the point of being here? We're just, random chance and blah, 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 headed for destruction, and that's terrifying. Or two, there is a God, and wow, he's probably got rules, and we better start listening to him. And through the course of this research, it led him to believe in the latter, that there is a God and he has rules, and we better start listening to him. So he's gone back to Genesis, and he's now keeping the Sabbath. He's doing the feast. He's trying to understand things and walk in God's ways. He's still tripped up on the New Testament. I've had some interesting conversations with him about it, but he's in the book, man. And the Holy Spirit takes over from there. we can certainly help these brothers and guide them along and help them maybe with their questions and stuff like that. But if they're in the Word of God and they're reading it for themselves, and the Holy Spirit says in 1 John chapter 2, you have no need of a teacher. The Holy Spirit is your teacher. The Holy Spirit's the one that inspired the text. So do you think the Holy Spirit might be able to explain it to somebody? Well, I think so.
The water will be collected at the equator. I mean, if you spin a wet tennis ball, you spin a wet tennis ball, the water shoots off at the equator, essentially. So all the water will be gathered around the equator. So why is there land at the equator? Doesn't make any sense. The other thing that's about the spinning Earth is looking at the stars. Now, directly above the axis of spin is the pole star, Polaris, directly over the North Pole. And we're told that the reason that all the stars spin around the North Star is because the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. Seems to make sense, because if you put a long exposure camera pointing at the North Star, you'll see the stars will make perfect circles around, perfect star trails. The only problem is the Earth is also orbiting the Sun at 67,000 miles an hour. The Sun is moving, dragging the Earth and all the planets up that way or that way at 600,000 miles an hour. So why do we see perfect circles? Because that's the slowest speed, that's slowest motion in that mix, and yet the Earth is moving 67 times faster that way and 600 times faster that way. So you should see the stars do all sorts of strange motions, but you don't. You only see them make these perfect circles. That tells me that it's the stars that are moving, not the Earth. The thing is, what the scientists will give you is calculations and and theories why that happens. But we have experience. We see things and they either make sense or they don't make sense. What the scientists do is substitute our common sense and our intuition for calculations and theory, and we're supposed to believe the calculations rather than what we experience ourselves. There was a famous experiment back in the 1800s in England called the Bedford Levels experiment. Now, the Bedford Levels is a canal that is perfectly straight for 6 miles. So what a chap called Samuel Rowbottom did was he took a telescope, put it in the water about 8 inches above the water, and he had a friend, in a rowboat with a flag on the back, row all the way to the other end, and he was able to see the flag on the back of the rowboat the whole distance. Now, according to spherical trigonometry, the curve of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared. So over 5 miles, that's 5 times 5, 25, times 8, which is 200, that's 200 inches, which works out at 16 feet. That means the boat should have been 16 feet below the horizon. You shouldn't have been able to see the boat. Now, the scientists will say, oh, refraction and this and light bending around the Earth and stuff. But the fact is, it's perfectly flat, and he in his book he puts forward many arguments that show that, or many experiments that show the Earth is always perfectly flat. They say that you see the mast go down last. Is literally just the way your vision works. It's perspective and atmospherics basically. The limit of your vision is supposedly 3 miles, and then after 3 miles you're supposed to see the boat start to go over the horizon. It's funny that Neil deGrasse Tyson again says that, explains that you can't see the curvature of the Earth from a plane. He says this, you can't see the curvature of the Earth from a plane because you're not high enough. The Earth is so big that you can't get high enough to see the curvature. Yet you can apparently see a boat go over the curvature. over the distance of 3 miles, which doesn't make sense. The thing is, when you look out and you see a boat start to go over the horizon, if you suddenly get a pair of binoculars and look, it comes back again. And once it goes out of the sight of your binoculars, if you get a telescope, yeah, it comes back again. It doesn't go over any curve of the horizon. What we found, many people have done experiments with very high-powered zoom cameras, and they've watched a boat sail out to sea, and they've just kept trained on this boat. And what they see is, after a very long distance, you see an atmospheric effect where the bottom of the boat disappears and and the top of the boat inverts, so you see a sort of mirror image. And that, with your eyesight, basically the bottom of the boat just melts into the horizon. One of the best examples of that is the Antwerp Notre Dame spire, which can be seen something like 240 kilometers away from the spire. So that should be over a mile below the horizon, and you can still see it.
This assertion of boats going over the edge of a ball Earth is silly. Check out this footage from a channel called Wide Awake. This guy filmed some great sky and horizon shots showing that objects can be brought back into view, and more importantly, his shots also demonstrate diffraction and the resolution limit of these objects at those distances and at those angles. As you can see in his footage, the boats, once they are close enough to resolve, appear like little smudges, and they also appear to be floating above the horizon. The boats are not mirages floating in the air, although there is an inferior mirage that appears inverted below the actual boats in his footage. To prove this, he actually tracks them all the way in, and the closer a boat gets, the more resolved it becomes, and the more detail you can see. This is a perfect illustration of visual acuity and the angular resolution of the camera, which is obviously better than our eyes, but the principle is the same. And again, if you increase your altitude, say to the top of a hotel or in an airplane or on a mountain, you create better angles and you can of course see further, but even there you will eventually reach a resolution limit. It is unavoidable, but it is not an edge that Santa Claus is falling over. Look at the water in his shots. Some would call the resolved water line the horizon, but you can clearly see boats fully in the water beyond the resolved water line. You can even barely make out the water being sprayed up from the motor. The surface of the water extends beyond the resolved water line, but it is too far and at too sharp of an angle for the camera or your eye to completely resolve. There's also a lot of diffraction going on due to this angle and the light or atmospheric conditions. Therefore, you get a blurred section that reflects the sky and the boat as an inferior mirage. Again, this happens beyond a point where the eye or camera can no longer clearly resolve the water due to the angle and diffraction. It is where your eye or camera can no longer distinguish points of light. The image blurs and turns into a mirror under certain conditions. Look at the shimmering and changing edges of the top of the waterline as the camera resolves it at its maximum distance. Beyond this distance, the water is at too small of an angle to resolve any detail. At this point, it does exactly what a road will do on a hot day. It reflects the light waves like a mirror because the eye or camera can more easily resolve these reflected light rays than they can the actual surface of the road or water. On the ground or on the water, you can see the inferior mirage or reflection of the boats and cars. Some people will claim that the boat itself is a superior mirage and that the actual boat is over the edge of a ball. This is silly for two reasons. Number one, a superior mirage is inverted, and number two, in this footage, he tracks these boats the entire way in, so you can verify with your own eyes how a boat will barely come into view as a small blur, And then as it gets closer and closer, the angles get larger and your eye can then resolve more and more detail. This is observable, repeatable, apparent, and can be verified by anyone. Unlike NASA's theories, of course, that nobody can verify unless they can build a little rocket ship.
There's been a few famous examples just recently of a man who took a picture across the Great Lakes from Michigan and was able to see, I believe, Chicago, which he shouldn't have been able to see. And the television station basically said it was a mirage.
This is from Joshua Nowicki, and what you're seeing here is a mirage. We typically would not be able to see this from the Lake Michigan shore. We talked about this last night. Conditions are right on the lake that we're actually seeing a mirage of the Chicago skyline.
But they always say it's a mirage, but for a mirage to happen, you have to have very specific atmospheric conditions. And there have been so many people who have seen exactly the same thing on different days, different seasons, and always the same. It's not a mirage. It's simply that you're looking across a plane. You see in a kind of pyramid shape. Yeah, you have a horizon at your eye level, and everything above the horizon will go down into the horizon. Yeah, everything below the horizon will seem to go up. Just like if you're in a long hallway, you'll see that the walls will start to move in, and the roof and the floor will start to move into the center. Yeah, so literally between you and the object you're looking at, there's all sorts of things, sort of like waves going up and down, and while you can't see them, if they're beyond the limit of your sight, sometimes they can still obscure what you're looking at. But it's just because they're between you and it, and it's just the way, it's literally perspective. It's better if I could draw a diagram, but it's a very difficult subject to get your head around if you're not used to it. But it is perspective. One sort of other proof is there's a place in Bolivia called Salar de Uyuni, which is a salt flat. It's literally 100 miles wide one way and 80 miles across, and it's perfectly flat. When it rains, literally you get an inch of water, and it looks like a perfect mirror. Now, how does that happen on a sphere? Yeah, it shows you that, if you're one end of this salt flat, you can see perfectly clearly the other end 100 miles away. So it's just showing you that the Earth is flat, and without the effect of the waves in the sea, you'll be able to see a whole lot further. If you were to go to NASA and download one of their photos of the Earth in the moon's sky and put it in Photoshop, okay, drop the saturation and the levels down, you'll see that the Earth has been pasted in, because you'll see a rectangular box around the Earth. It's all fraud, it's all fake. Pretty much everything NASA puts out is fraudulent. There are no images of Earth from space.
Defenders of the globe like to quote their scientific data. They say, we have scientific data that proves the Earth is a sphere. We have scientific data that proves the heliocentric model. We have scientific data that proves the infinite universe is full of billions of planets and stars and suns and whatever. Well, this simple phrase that came to mind the other day will essentially nullify every single piece of scientific data ever released by NASA. Every computer system ever developed, every software program, every single line of code ever written or used, either the computers, the software, or the code, for use by NASA or any other science agency, was based on the assumption that the Earth is a sphere and it orbits a sun that's 93 million miles away. All of the computers, all of the software, all of the code are all based on the false assumption that the Earth is a sphere. So, this simple phrase that came to mind the other day, the one that we all know and are familiar with, the one that programmers like to use, garbage in, garbage out. That's it. If you start with erroneous data, you end up with erroneous data. Garbage in, garbage out. Period.
I think they literally hide the flat Earth, the reality of it, in these complex documents. And it's meant to frustrate you. It's meant to confuse you. Because you look at this for the first time, your first time coming into flat Earth, you take a look at this. If I presented this document to you and says, okay, you want to learn about the flat Earth? Here you go, read this. And then let's have a conversation. The first time you'd look at this, you'd be like, what the f***? Are you fucking serious? This is what the flat Earth is? This is the model? How the f*** am I going to understand? The Earth's a fucking globe. I don't want to look at this. Let me look at NASA's photos. They make it intentionally complex. They're hiding the flat Earth in this math. And I don't mean bullshit math as in it's right or wrong, but they convolute the document with all these calculations. Okay? All of these calculations. I guarantee you, if you spoke to the author about this and asked him to give you a 5-minute presentation to explain this, he wouldn't be able to do it. He would not be able to do it. He'd just get frustrated. You wanted to say to him, hey, I read your paper, on tsunamis and using a flat Earth model. So do you believe the Earth is flat? And first thing he'd do is look at you and be like, oh, you're not one of those people, are you? The fuck do you mean I'm not one of those people? You wrote a paper titled fucking Tsunami using the fucking flat Earth model. So what the fuck you write a paper about this shit for? If you don't believe it. See, it's these type of people we need to get in contact with. People like this who write these papers. And you just sit them down and say, hey, can you break it down for me? I want to understand this because I'm looking into the flat Earth. I want to know how things work on the flat Earth. Explain to me why you believe the Earth is flat. And I guarantee you they'll get the fuck up and walk away.
Welcome everybody, it's Carlos once again. Now, in this movie, we're going to be talking about where's the curve. I've had people in the comments of my last movie say that it didn't prove we live on a flat Earth. For one, I'm going to have to say you didn't stick around long enough. And the second thing, well, this is what this video is all about. We're going to be talking about if we actually live on a ball that's 25,000 miles in circumference, there has to be curvature, right? So, sit back, relax, get your popcorn out, because we're about to learn a lot of math. Just kidding. But really, hopefully you enjoy. God bless.
So there's the pretty blue marble that NASA claims we are living on, with circumference of 24,901 and 3959 radius. So to find the curvature, you take 8 inches times your distance squared. That's 8 inches times your distance squared, and if you don't square the distance, you end up with this, and this is not what NASA has shown us. They have given us a beautiful blue marble that we love. So you get 8 inches for 1 mile, 32 inches in 2 miles, 16.6 feet with 5 miles, so on and so forth. So what I did is I shot this pier, which is in Daytona Beach, Florida. And as you can see, between the water and the walkway of the pier is about 12 to 16 feet based on the height of the people and the railing. So I started at Granada, which is 4.92 miles away, and I shot this, and based on that distance and the formula, there should be 16 feet of curvature, but obviously you can still see the entire gap under the walkway there between that and the water. So in addition to that, behind that pier is actually a lighthouse, which you can see right above the pier. You can see the light. That is 16 miles away from my location, and I shot that lighthouse. I also shot it in a video, which I'll show here in a second. Now that lighthouse is 175 feet tall, and the curvature from 16 miles away should be 170 feet. You can clearly see about the entire lighthouse beyond that pier. So like I said, there should be 170 feet of curvature, but there's none. And those hotels there are even further. Those are in New Smyrna, which is 20 miles away. Well, depending on the location, 17 to 20, which I'll show in a second here. But you can clearly see that lighthouse above that pier, and that is 16 miles away. And there's the shot of the New Smyrna line of hotels, and this is shot from Granada in Ormond Beach, Florida. Like I said, that is 17.5 miles away. I also shoot that from another location even further. But again, it's 17.5 miles away. That's 204 feet of curvature. I know that tall hotel is 18 stories, but the other ones, I mean, it's just ridiculous. There's no curvature. Now I shot this picture from 8 miles away. That's the same Daytona Beach pier, and this is from 8 miles away from Ormond by the Sea, which is, like I said, 8 miles away. It's from an area we call the Sandlot. From this distance, there should be 42 feet of curvature. Now there's clearly the entire gap under that walkway and the water. You can clearly see the space. There's no curvature. Nothing is covered up. Here's a closer view of that pier from those 8 miles away. I don't see any curvature, and it should be 42 feet. And there's the hotel from New Smyrna. That's that same hotel I shot from the other location. This time, this is 20 miles away. From 20 miles, there should be 266 feet of curvature. And I know that hotel is about 18 stories. It's not even close. And you can pretty much see the entire hotel, even in this shot. So, I mean, from these shots, it's pretty obvious there's no detectable curvature. So, what does that mean? Well, if NASA is right and there is, we do live on a ball, they're going to have to make up that curvature. If it's not in the 20 miles I'm shooting, well then that means it's got to be made up further on down the line. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say we live on this ball and then say, oh, you can't detect the curvature. Well, you got to detect it somewhere, because if it's not dropping here, it's going to have to drop even more down the line in order to make that circle, that ball they say we live on. And it's pretty round. That blue marble they give us is perfectly round. Unfortunately for them, they can't show us, they can't prove here on Earth that there's any curvature. They can't point out curvature, because we're taking these long shots without detecting anything. And like I said, if you can't detect it here, you're going to have to detect it double down the road. This pier shot is clearly showing the entire gap under that pier at 8 miles away. The shot of the lighthouse is showing the entire lighthouse. Should be 170 feet of curvature. So just to stress, this is the equation: 8 inches times your distance in miles squared. and that will give you the drop in curvature that you should see.
Now here's the other issue. People who think ships are disappearing over the curve in 3, 4, 5 miles distance, it's got to work both ways. I mean, if we're on a ball, then when the ship is going away from you on the, let's say, the z-axis, going, from you to a point away from you, and it's rolling over the ball in 3 to 5 miles, then you should have the exact same effect looking left to right on the x-axis. You should be seeing ships rolling up to the top of the ball and rolling down on the lateral x-axis. I mean, if it's a ball, they got to be rolling both ways, away from you and side to side. We never see that though. You can go to the beach and do a panoramic shot and put a parallel line over it, and from end to end, and this is a lot more than just 5 miles, there's no perceived curvature here. None. Flat as a pancake. In fact, these are some pictures I took on the beach at Malibu, California, and I went from there way up into the mountains above Pepperdine University and looked out, and I mean, easily there's got to be probably close to 100 miles left to right. The distance on the horizon there, it's got to be, quite a bit there. Put a parallel line over it, flat. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say ships are rolling over the ball on the z-axis without having the same exact perception on the x-axis.
Whether at sea level, the top of Mount Everest, or flying 100,000 feet in the air, the always horizontal horizon line always rises up to meet the eye level of the observer and remains perfectly flat. You can test for yourself on a beach or hilltop, in a large field or desert, aboard a hot air balloon or helicopter. You will see the panoramic horizon ascend with you and remain completely level all around. If the Earth were actually a big ball, however, the horizon should sink as you ascend, not rise to your eye level, and it would dip at each end of your periphery, not remain flat all around. Standing in a rising balloon, you would have to look downwards to the horizon. The highest point of the ball Earth would be directly beneath you and declining on each side. Amateurs have sent balloons to heights of over 121,000 feet, and you can watch video online of the horizon rising with the camera level and remaining perfectly flat 360 degrees around. NASA videos and other official sources, however, such as the recent Red Bull skydive at 128,000 feet, have been caught adding fake curvature to the Earth via wide-angle lenses and post-production work. Panoramic photos atop Mount Everest also often claim to be displaying Earth's curvature, but this is simply the result of distortions and limitations inherent in wide-angle lenses. Samuel Shenton wrote, "The camera-distorted horizons have always been a misleading factor with those who have not freed their minds from the planet or globe Earth indoctrination. 3 or 4 years ago, the USIS booklet Science Horizons carried a note to the effect that the Americans hoped to produce a lens which would not distort level horizons. So far, I am not aware that such aid to truer photography has yet been made available. Flat earthers, however, can prove that due to the known laws of perspective, the horizon optically rises and remains level with the observer's or the camera's eye, no matter what height is achieved. In fact, the Earth immediately beneath balloon, airplane, rocket, or capsule presents a dish-shaped or concave-like appearance, the point of Earth immediately below the vehicle appearing the lowest. It is not the highest point of your globe Earth, with the dip or curvature of the ball sweeping away downward to a horizon far away below the eye level. If the Earth were actually a big ball 25,000 miles in circumference, the horizon would be noticeably curved even at sea level, and everything on or approaching the horizon would appear to tilt backwards slightly from your perspective. Distant buildings along the horizon would all look like leaning towers of Pisa falling away from the observer. A hot air balloon taking off, then drifting steadily away from you on a ball Earth would slowly and constantly appear to lean back more and more the farther away it flew, the bottom of the basket coming gradually into view as the top of the balloon disappears from sight. In reality, however, buildings, balloons, trees, people, anything and everything at right angles to the ground or horizon remains so regardless the distance of the observer.
Okay, going back to this picture right here, showing the perception differences when you're zooming in and out. Here's another shot right here. This boat came into view as I was zooming out. Zooming out, zooming out, zooming out, and it rose higher on the horizon. See, when I was zoomed in on him, there's all this space right here from the bottom of the boat to the horizon, and when it's further away, that distance shrinks. So our eyes start playing tricks on us. Now, to better illustrate this, I created this little animation right here, and this represents about a mile worth of ocean. All right, so when you're looking, you can see the difference in how each of these ships looks like it's higher and higher up on the water level. Now that's on flat water, no waves at all. Now let's look at this same animation. I created some waves no higher than the height of the camera. In fact, a few times you'll see the camera go right through the waves, but the wave height was about as high as the camera, which was just a little bit above the water. Okay, so let's look at the same exact animation, this time with some waves. Okay, there's wave, 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 wave. Okay, over the distance here, the cumulative effect of the waves obscures the hull of ships. That's just what happens with the perspective. As the ships get higher and higher up on the horizon, as you get further and further away, and you have the compounding of the waves over that distance, it's really easy to see how you end up with the illusion of ships rolling over the ball when it has nothing to do with that at all. This is a flat plane. Here's the two pictures side by side, with flat water with no waves and then with waves. In both cases, the more distant ships rise up on the horizon, but in the picture on the right, you have the waves obscuring the hull, and over the distance it accumulates, so you lose more and more of it. The other big problem with the ships going over the curve argument is what happens to the horizon when you go up and down on the y-axis. When you go up on the y-axis, the horizon doesn't change. Now, let's assume we're looking at eye level right there, and the horizon's right across our eye level. When you rise up on the y-axis, the horizon stays at that same level. Well, maybe it's hard for you to see in this animation, so let me do more of a basic one right here. Here's the horizon, right here. If I go down, it stays the same on a plane. And if I go up, it stays the same on a plane. That cannot happen on a ball. If you saw ships roll over the curve on a ball, like this, the horizon's right there. The only way you're going to see that ship is to rise up on the y-axis, but when you do that on a ball, you lose it. Now, here's a more practical example. Just watch cars go over a hill. Get down on the ground. This is my iPhone. I put my iPhone on the ground. I'm watching cars drive by. There's a nice truck right there. They're about to go down a hill. And now here's the horizon right here. This is, the horizon to my camera. And if I want to see those cars, I just have to rise up on the y-axis. Now, I didn't keep it all steady right there, so as the camera comes back to pretty much the same level that the eye level of the camera, as it were, you see the distant horizon right there is the same. It's exactly the same. Now, again, that was sloppy because I was just doing it with an iPhone, and my hands didn't keep it exactly the same. But if you were to rise directly up on the y-axis with a camera on a tripod or a crane or something like that, you'd have the same exact thing that you observe anytime you've flown in an airplane. Doesn't matter how high you go, that horizon just follows right up with you outside your window. When you're sitting on the flight line, you look out, there's a horizon at a certain level, and when you fly up to 35,000 feet, that horizon stays at the same level. That cannot happen on a ball. On a ball, when you rise up on the y-axis, there's no way the horizon is going to rise with you, especially if you think ships rolled over that curve in 5 miles of distance. If you lost, 20, 30 feet of a ship disappearing over the curve, then just like the example of the cars, if you want to see those cars again, you got to rise up on the y-axis and look down at the ever-increasing slope of the hill to watch that, truck or car or whatever continue down the hill. The same thing should be if you're watching ships disappear over the ball on the z-axis in front of you, in 5 miles distance, and you're losing 20, 30 feet worth of the hull, then you should rise up on the y-axis, look down the ever-increasing curvature of the ball to see that ship receding away on the curve. But that doesn't happen. You see ships go away from you on the z-axis, but there's no indication of the same exact curve on the x-axis, and when you go up on the y-axis, the horizon pops up with you. That should not be if we're on a ball.
Why would they perpetrate such a massive disinformation campaign for so long? What's the rationale for it? What's the motivation for it in your mind?
What do they gain from it, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, think about it this way. And again, it wasn't like they perpetrated the hoax for 500 years. It seems that whoever built this place has kept that going. But when the Americans and the Russians figured it out, and I'm estimating around 1956, they had to look at the power structure that was in place, and they had to see what would change. And one of the biggest things that would change is it would lend credence, very, very strong credence, to intelligent design. More than anything, you're basically saying, oh yeah, by the way, if it's not a globe, then it's probably some sort of dome structure. And if that's the case, you're probably looking at the handprint of God over there. Should we show that to the major religions, the ones that science has been beating up for centuries? That would, the paradigm shift in spirituality would be massive. You're basically looking at the 5 major religions that control 80% of the population. That is Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, and Christianity. You're looking at those 5 religions, and you're basically saying, oh yeah, by the way, we were wrong, and all your texts, for better or worse, seem to be right. And you're sticking your chin out there if you're science. Forget about the economic side of it. Look at it this way. Imagine every university, and you're well educated. Imagine every university in every country in the world. Their astrophysics and astronomy departments get burned down overnight. And then the remaining physical sciences like geology, hydrology, geography, archaeology, take your pick, they have to all be retooled to fit the new model. And that's just the education system. Economics, I don't know, how about the $1 trillion fraud by NASA over the last 6 decades? The class action lawsuits by the subcontractors, and those subcontractors would take forever. It would be but the stock markets would be a mess. It'd be basically a soup sandwich for a long time, and they just don't want to deal with it. They'd rather deal with the status quo and say, you know what, let's not we'll deal with that when we deal with it, but for now we're just going to leave it as is, leave everything the way we want it, and just hold on to it because it's only money. And so far it's worked, but it's running out of gas. The space program, they could only use smoke and mirrors for so long, and now it's starting to fall apart.
So, what about our maps? There was a great episode of West Wing where they actually talk about this. Now, before we get that, the reason why I say this is because I believe you get a lot of truth in movies, television shows, and even commercials, while they sit there and bold-faced lie to us on the media or your evening news. So, check this out.
Wait, I want to see this. This is Josh Lyman.
Indeed you are.
Josh, this is Dr. Fallow, and
Hi.
Miss Mary Men.
Yes.
Should we begin?
Yes. Plain and simple, we'd like President Bartlett to aggressively support legislation that would make it mandatory for every public school in America to teach geography using the Peters projection map instead of the traditional Mercator.
Give me $200 and it's done.
Really?
No. Why are we changing maps?
Because, CJ, the Mercator projection has fostered European imperialist attitudes for centuries and created an ethnic bias against the Third World.
Really?
The German cartographer, Mercator, originally designed this map in 1569 as a navigational tool for European sailors.
The map enlarges areas at the poles to create straight lines of constant bearing or geographic direction.
So it makes it easier to cross an ocean.
But
yes,
it distorts the relative size of nations and continents.
Are you saying the map is wrong?
Oh dear, yes. Look at Greenland.
Okay.
Now look at Africa.
Okay.
The 2 land masses appear to be roughly the same size.
Yes.
Would it blow your mind if I told you that Africa is in reality 14 times larger?
Yes?
Here we have Europe, drawn considerably larger than South America. When it's 6.9 million square miles, South America is almost double the size of Europe's 3.8 million.
Alaska appears 3 times as large as Mexico, when Mexico is larger by 0.1 million square miles.
Germany appears in the middle of the map when it's in the northernmost quarter of the Earth.
Wait. Relative size is one thing, but you're telling me that Germany isn't where we think it is?
Nothing's where you think it is.
Where is it?
I'm glad you asked. The Peters projection.
It has fidelity of axis.
Fidelity of position.
East-west lines are parallel and intersect north-south axes at right angles.
What the hell is that?
It's where you've been living this whole time. Should we continue?
Uh-huh.
So, you're probably wondering what all of this has to do with social equality.
No, I'm wondering where France really is.
Guys, we want to thank you very much for coming in.
Hang on, we're gonna finish this.
What do maps have to do with social equality, you ask?
She asked.
Salvatore Natoli of the National Council for Social Studies argues, in our society we unconsciously equate size with importance and even power.
I'm going to check in on Tobin.
Go.
These guys find Brigadoon on that map, you'll call me, right?
Probably not.
Okay.
When third world countries are misrepresented, they're likely to be valued less. When Mercator maps exaggerate the importance of Western civilization, when the top of the map is given to the Northern Hemisphere, and the bottom is given to the Southern, then people will tend to adopt top and bottom attitudes.
But wait, where else could you put the Northern Hemisphere but on the top?
On the bottom.
How?
Like this.
Yeah, but you can't do that.
Why not?
Because it's freaking me out.
So let's talk about airline pilots now. They can't all be in on it, right? Well, most of the time, you're not even paying attention to something like this. It's until you start researching this that you actually start looking up and looking down.
Please don't use my name. I'd prefer you refer to me as Mac. I'm a career commercial pilot, and I'm currently serving as a senior captain on the B777 fleet of a flag carrier airline. He's not going to name which airline for obvious reasons. I came across your Flat Earth clues recently and thought I'd share something with you. Before I do, I need to explain some technical details. I'll try to keep it short. Please bear with me. And I've read through this part already, and it's, you gotta listen. Try to listen closely. Keep in mind the details are pretty technical. I will try to dumb it down if I can. So, the ADIRU system, also known as the Air Data Initial Reference Unit, we pronounce it IDARU. Oof, it's a horrible name, but I'll keep trying. IDARU is the standard in modern avionics. It's at the center of a modern aircraft's avionics system. This has been the case for some 20-odd years and has replaced the old inertia navigation system, otherwise known as the INS, which was a standalone reference for the navigation computer. IDARU offers 1. Ring laser gyros. No more mechanical spinning discs on gimbals. The RLG are on a tethered or strapped down platform. Ring laser gyros. 2. The integration with other systems. IDARU provides a reference for other systems like the ADIs, weather radar, yaw damper, thrust control, etc. It used to be the case that all of these systems were independently referenced with dedicated gyros. And 3. Much greater processing power. Whenever IDARU is started up, it needs to be initialized or aligned. This is where the system calibrates itself to the spin of the Earth to prevent drift. The procedure involves entering your latitude and longitude coordinates and commanding the initialization. During initialization, no systems that reference it can be on, and the aircraft must be stationary and stable. Even loading luggage or catering supplies can disrupt it and cause an error. This takes from between 5 to 17 minutes, depending on how far from the equator you are. And by the way, as I was reading this the first time, I thought for a while there he was going to be, a pilot and finally a professional that comes out against Flat Earth. but that's not where he's going with this. So bear with me, all right? Now the story, if you're still awake. In October of 2015, I was commanding a routine 6-hour flight. When it came to initializing the IDA-RU, it returned an error. This is not all that uncommon, and it usually takes on a second attempt. After a few tries, we just got the same thing, error. I called the tower, explained the situation, and they sent an avionics tech out. He ran his check in the avionics bay and said that it all checked out and that the fault was only with the initialization module inside the box. In this situation, they would normally just unplug it and slide a replacement box in there. However, it's a rare occurrence and has never happened to me. Unfortunately, there was no replacement available at this location. I called the company and reported the situation. After about 20 minutes, someone got back to me and advised that they could get a replacement box to me, but would take about 12 hours. Or, since my flight plan was not outside of ground radar coverage, I could use GPS as a primary reference and adjust the IDA-RU's data via ATC manually and periodically to compensate for drift. I decided that the later suggestion was within safe limits and made the decision to continue. As instructed, I had my first officer regularly call ATC for ground radar positioning and make necessary adjustments to the IDA-RU data. However, throughout the entire flight, and this was a 6-hour flight, no drift occurred. This was a real head-scratcher, and since it's company policy and my personal policy to understand as much as possible about the aircraft and its systems, I wanted to know why. I talked to someone at our fleet maintenance department and was told that they didn't make repairs to any black boxes, and I should talk to the manufacturer, in this case, Honeywell. I contacted Honeywell and managed to talk to a senior IDA-RU engineer. He was very helpful. It turns out they don't make the ACM, the alignment calibration module, which looks a bit like a desktop PC hard drive, painted bright orange with warnings printed on it, do not open, serviceable only by manufacturer. It turns out that there's only one company that supplies these modules to all avionics makers, and nobody else seems to know anything about their workings. I tried contacting the company and was just given the runaround. This is very strange since pilots are usually welcome anywhere in the industry. I could show up unannounced at Boeing and get treated like family. After a lot of digging, I found out that this mysterious ACM manufacturer is a contractor to NASA, and that's all I can find out. To date, I've been unable to talk to anyone there and still can't find out anything about this ACM. It feels like I've hit a wall, but I'm still digging. To be fair, I wouldn't describe myself as a flat earther, I'm just someone who wants this question answered. If there are any breakthroughs on this, I'll let you know. Feel free to use any of this on your show, but please remember to refer to me as Mac. I did consider allowing you to interview me, but this time I don't think I'm comfortable with that. I'll let you know if I change my mind. All the best, Mac. Wow. Okay, so let me break that down for you real quick. So inside the gyro system that he was talking about, the gyro system, in this case the black box, was made by Honeywell. The alignment calibration module is not made by Honeywell. It's subcontracted out by another company, and that company has it sealed to where only they are allowed to work on it, but they don't ever work on it. They just swap them out. They just swap out the parts. So what happened was this particular alignment module broke before he could fly. The weird, on the weird circumstance, they couldn't get a new one in there, so he flew the 6 hours without using it. And the plane should have drifted because of the curvature and the Coriolis effect, otherwise known as the spinning of the Earth. And it didn't. The plane didn't drift for 6 hours on a 777. That's a flagship, top of the line stuff there. Why didn't it drift? And he was trying to figure out why. He couldn't figure it out, and in the process of trying to figure out what happened, he discovered that this module, this module's made by exactly one company, and they supply every airline in the industry. And when you try to call them, they don't talk to you, and they're a subcontractor for NASA. remember what I said about if you want to plug the holes, you want to do it very securely, you know, when it comes to hiding things, and this would be that thing. So to keep the pilots from not worrying about it, you tell them there's a guidance system inside their plane that accounts for the curvature and the spinning of the Earth, and it doesn't. And you hope to God something like this doesn't happen, to where it breaks, and the pilot goes, well, wait a minute, how am I flying normally without that thing working? Why have that thing in there at all? And when you call the company to figure out what they're actually doing, they won't talk to you. That's brilliant. That's such a great thing, and I would love him to come on the show if he had more to talk about, or even just talk about this. I'd love to have him on. So if you're listening out there, Mac, I would love to chat it up with you about this. It's a great little story, and I love it, and I'm so glad at least you put yourself out there. And of course, you can come on anonymously. You know, if you're a 777 pilot currently, I've got some friends that are 777 pilots. Please, you know, by all means, I will give you complete anonymity, and but, you know, love to have you on. So thank you to Mac for putting that out there, and I think it's a great thing. A great little piece of evidence, and that is the gyro systems. Because people kept asking, it's like I get that question all the time: is how did the pilots miss it? How did the pilots miss it? And not only are they not looking for it, but in this case, they're given equipment that tells them that the curvature of the Earth and there's a spinning, and it's not there.
So, could the Earth really be flat? Most people, when they think of a flat Earth, immediately think, what happens when you get to the edge? Well, the flat Earth model is a flat circular disk with a north magnetic pole in the centre, and all the continents are laid out around it. On the edge of this disk is a wall of ice, and we call it Antarctica. There is no South Pole. That's why you can't fall off the flat Earth. The wall of ice keeps the oceans in and stops you from reaching the edge. Strangely enough, the only other place that this model is used is in the United Nations logo. Looks like they know something that we don't. As you can see on the UN logo, the flat Earth map is overlaid with a grid. And that grid divides the Earth into 33 sections. And also, there's no Antarctica on this map. It's almost as if that grid were like bars, like a cell, locking us away from Antarctica, which is precisely what they're doing. The United Nations countries are all signatories to the Antarctica Treaty, which basically bans anybody from going to Antarctica. And if there's any absolute proof of either the globe Earth or the flat one, then I believe the answers would be in Antarctica. But before we examine Antarctica, I'd like to take a look at flights in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, this information came to me through Mark Sargent and his Flat Earth Clues. A lot of people say that Mark is a shill. I communicated with him over email. He seemed like a decent bloke. So I'm not going to say he's a shill. He has his ideas, his views, his perspectives, as I have mine, and everybody else has theirs. So I'm not going to say he's a shill, but nonetheless his Flat Earth Clues were very well done and I got a lot out of them, so thank you, Mark. The crux of this issue is the lack of direct flights in the Southern Hemisphere. I took a look at some of these flights and particularly focused on flights from Cape Town to Auckland, New Zealand. Generally, flights in the Southern Hemisphere tend to be indirect, with one or more connections and lengthy layovers. Such is the case with this one from Cape Town to Auckland. This flight came out around about 37 hours with a connecting flight in Dubai. Now if you look on a map, Cape Town to Auckland is a straight shot across the Indian Ocean, 7,310 miles. That should take about 12 hours. But in this case, we're taking thousands of miles north to Dubai, then back down south to Melbourne, and then across to Auckland. It doesn't make any sense. Until, that is, you look at it on the Flat Earth model. Now you can see it's a straight line from Cape Town to Dubai to Melbourne, and the distance is more like 16,000 miles. So the total journey time of 37 hours is there to hide the fact that your actual flight time is 26 hours rather than 11 or 12. Now, I did find one direct flight operated by Qantas, but who knows? The flight was 14 hours long, but does that flight actually exist? I don't know. Short of booking that flight and flying it, I wouldn't know. But it strikes me that you could advertise such a flight, price it beyond the reach of most people, and cancel it for anybody who does take it. But that's just speculation. Now, the GPS system would obviously show up any anomalies in the flight plan, but it seems they've found a very simple way of getting around that problem. And that is switching off GPS tracking for all flights in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, this is an image from Flight Tracker, and you can see straight off that in the Northern Hemisphere you will see planes over the ocean, but there are none in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, I spent some time looking at it on flighttracker.com, and I actually verified this information, but I couldn't capture the data on my computer. So here's a video of planes disappearing and reappearing off the tracking systems.
So hey guys, I'm on planefinder.net. I'm tracking airplanes in the Southern Hemisphere, trying to do some research to verify or debunk this flat Earth guy. And what he said is that airplanes disappear in the South Atlantic near the, in the Southern Hemisphere when they fly over oceans. And it's true. I was tracking a British Airways flight from Buenos Aires to London, and I was tracking, and then it disappeared. And then I clicked on this plane right here, Qatar. See how the flight path, like when you click on the plane, the flight path appears or disappears, right? So I clicked on this plane looking for my British Airways flight, and I found this flight, and look, see how the flight path just starts in the middle of nowhere right here? This flight path starts in the middle of nowhere. That's because what they do with flights in the Southern Hemisphere is they disappear them. They turn off the GPS over the ocean, and then they reappear the flights about an hour before landing. And that's exactly what the Flat Earth guy said they do. And that's exactly what they're doing. This guy's going to Rome. Okay. So this is a pretty good flight to track because it's going all the way to Europe. So I just clicked on this flight, same thing. This guy, we should have saw him before when we were tracking the other plane and when we were tracking this plane that's heading to Rome. But this guy, when we were tracking the plane headed to Rome, he wasn't even on the map. He's coming from Abu Dhabi. It's in the Middle East. He's been in the air for what, 12, 13, 14, 15 hours? He's been in the air for 7,000 miles, and we're just picking him up right here. We're just picking him up in the middle of nowhere. Look, they disappeared the flight over the entire ocean, and they're reappearing it for landing about an hour before landing. Think about it. He's got 500 miles to go. It's about an hour before landing, just like the Flat Earth guy said. I mean, take a look at what this guy's flight path should look like on a Flat Earth model. This stuff's crazy. You have to look into this for yourselves. Don't pretend like you know everything, because you only know what you've been taught, and we know that the stuff we've been taught was a bunch of bull. So we need to question everything. Question everything, but don't believe everything. Question everything. There's a big difference.
Now, I know a lot of this evidence seems circumstantial, but there are many flights in the Southern Hemisphere that have stopovers in seemingly nonsensical places that only make sense on a flat Earth. Santiago, Chile to Auckland, for instance, stops over in Los Angeles. Nonsensical on a globe makes perfect sense on a flat Earth. And the only way to verify these flight paths just happens to be switched off for all Southern Hemisphere flights. Circumstantial, I'll grant you, but compelling nonetheless.
So, where is the curve? Like I titled this video, you can't find it. I've been looking for over a year now and I have not been able to find the curve. I mean, your senses clearly tell us that we're not revolving, we're not living on a ball, that you're in a flat, stationary plane. It explains everything. This is information that needs to be spread. So please like, share, and comment. Most importantly, share this because we need to get the truth out there. Now, the truth is enlightening and all, but the ultimate truth is in the scriptures. Well, that's where I'm going to actually lean my faith on. There's a lot of flat earthers out here that are coming to the truth, but not enough of them are coming to the truth of Jesus Christ. Now, I know it's going to sound a little preachy, but this is what my channel is going to be about. The truth of not just flat earth, but the love of Christ. So guys, again, thank you for tuning in. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you around.